One of the other things that I really like is around the open source ecosystem, it's becoming less and less like a big corporate structure. You're having people who have natural talent who don't have to go work for the man, you know? It's like they can kind of build their own businesses. And there's a huge surge in this being created by talented open source hackers. So you have people building a library or a language and then basically consulting on how people can take advantage of that. And they, you know, make good money doing that. But we're professionals in a time where it's like just super exciting. Like everything just keeps getting better and more amazing, and technology is just coming from every direction in everything we do. And it's interesting to just look around and be like, well, how can I make money with just what's going on and what interests me, rather than going to work on somebody else's project that you don't really care about. And the work that we do can directly impact our friends and family. And and you can see like great ideas adopted, but you know, being able to show people, well, yes, all you saw was me typing a bunch of characters all day long. But, you know, I made this thing that puts little captions over funny cat pictures, and like people can appreciate that. And the cool thing is that this is regular people doing this. You know, the stereotype of the socially inept nerd is slowly going away. What you have is a whole bunch of people who have grown up around computers, and they've basically gotten to the point where, you know, everybody's around these things all the time. And so all sorts of people are involved in computing and doing really amazing things. And a lot of these guys start off as boutique consultancies, and they move on to create products that have a recurring income. And so they might build 1 or 2 products, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, we're making enough money that we don't have to do consulting anymore. So let's focus on the products, and let's work on things that we're really interested in. Let's do things with our time that's meaningful to us. And you don't need mega global partnerships to make money and have fun with your friends. And working with friends is basically my favorite aspect of working at GitHub and working in the open source community. This is basically, to put in perspective, the CEO, the CTO, and the CFO are in that photo as well. Like, you know, we're all just normal people, and we happen to be able to make money with this. And what's interesting is these businesses end up hiring their friends from open source projects because you already know that they have the skill set you want. And it's great because every single person in that photo we worked with before we started. We've all been friends for a number of years, but only recently has GitHub started making enough money that they can say, hey, will you come work with us? And we're like, heck yes, I would love to. And this is fun because it's a flat organization. There isn't like a hierarchy. We don't have managers. We just talk to each other. We're all very passionate about doing something that's good, and we do the right thing. I mean, if people are actually slacking off, someone will get a talking to. But our company runs like a big open source project. We all know what needs to be done. We listen to our users. We work on the things that are important. And we don't have like somebody coming down and being like, well, we need feature parity with this competitor. It's like, no, what we're doing is trying to build the best tools, and we're focusing on making sure that everything is the highest quality that we can have. And I think a lot of that comes from open source. And I think that the corporate ladder is something you can totally avoid. It's of no interest to me. I don't think I'm ever going to be a big company executive. You know, like I don't want to be a big company executive. And that's basically what you do in a lot of organizations. And it's like, oh, well, you were a good developer for 4 or 5 years. Now you're a manager. And it's like, but I like hacking. And they're like, but you know how to talk to the hackers. And you need to be able to talk to the executives and be a liaison. And it's like, but I just want to make cool stuff. And if you think about it, like I'm going to spend a huge amount of my adult life working. Like I should really enjoy what I'm doing. And that I think is kind of a core value, is that people undervalue happiness. We as software developers can basically enjoy a much higher quality of life than a lot of other people. You have a lot of opportunities available to you. And the difference comes from people finding jobs that they're passionate about. That is a big thing for me, and I think that happiness is really undervalued and often overlooked in employment. There's a book by this guy named Chad Fowler called The Passionate Programmer, and he basically highlights a lot of things that have helped him through his career, like ongoing exploration, like learning new languages just to kind of stay sharp and see what's on the horizon, finding work that you love, and enjoying your life outside of work. We don't want, like, if your job's amazing, and you can work 60 hours a week because that's so much fun, like, you need some kind of life balance. And being able to find that outside of work is definitely amazing. The jobs are out there. Everybody I know in San Francisco is basically hiring. There's a severe lack of talented developers right now. And if you have the chops, you can get a job. And open source is the best way really to get get your foot in the door. But I mean, there are jobs and you can find something that's awesome. It's like, in the web space, in the mobile space, in the media space, there's so much going on right now with technology that anything you're interested, there is something out there that probably you can land a job working at. But I think finding rewarding work is extremely important because you spend so much of your life, your adult life, doing it. I think that enabling your students is a big thing. Like, I wish that I had so many opportunities in college, and I really wish I'd had more. I can't think of anything more fulfilling than helping people lead wonderful lives. And I think that as software developers and enabling those students, you can get them to lead wonderful lives. But if maybe 5% of your students right now are successful and kind of like land a job and they're happy and life is good, how many more would you enable if you got them involved in open source? Like, how many more would just have more opportunities presented to them or a higher quality of life if you just kind of gave them that extra little nudge to get them going? Just think of how amazing all those thank you emails will be when it's like, man, I've been out for a while and life is great. Thank you so much for making this happen. It's just kind of like, this doesn't, it makes sense to me, but it doesn't always make sense to everybody else. But some of my friends and coworkers didn't go to school. Some of them did. And you can survive in the industry without a formal degree. Like, I'm glad I got one. And I really look back on it, and I feel like I spent those years wisely. But it took me a few years to come to terms with that. But I don't think a CS degree alone is good enough to really get you going in the real world these days. I think the lessons learned in open source give students a competitive advantage in the job market. Being able to show your work to people when you go for an interview, or, like, I hired a guy who was 19, much to my manager's frustration, who basically, I knew him from open source. And he had done an amazing job on this web project that we worked on. And we were looking for people, and I was like, can we hire this guy as a contractor? And he was like, no. And I said, well, but he works on this open source project. And he said, okay. And it was great because he didn't know he was 19 at that time. And then he came back to me a week later and was like, you want me to hire a 19-year-old? And I said, yes, because I knew he'd do a good job. And he actually works with us at GitHub now. But I think this also just kind of, it gives you a competitive advantage. I knew that guy. I would have never known a 19-year-old from Belgium and would have wanted him to work with me if he hadn't been so involved in those projects and made himself visible. And things like GitHub allow you to kind of put your name out there. The most fulfilling part of my job is putting smiles on people's faces. I love building software that directly affects people, and they get some utility out of it. I don't like the esoteric, this is the most optimal type thing. What I want to do is put features in front of people that make their lives easier so they can move on and have a lot more fun. For students who are here, I promise you, if you hustle and try all these things, I would highly doubt that you have a problem getting a job. The landscape has changed so much since I got out of school 6 years ago that the street cred given to open source contributors is great. For educators, if you can just motivate your students and kind of just get them to work on things outside of the classroom, I think that you will find it's extremely rewarding to see those people kind of just grow into stronger developers and kind of be amazed at how capable they are if you kind of give them that nudge. So thank you. If you guys have any questions, you can feel free to talk to me afterwards or now. The other thing I want to mention, I didn't want to sit up here and be like, oh my gosh, GitHub is so great, but we do offer free private repositories for educators. So if you're a teacher, you can actually have private repos where your students are using like a revision control system, just like most open source projects, and a lot of educators right now are starting to use it for coursework. So their students have to sign up for accounts. They send basically what's called a pull request to the teacher to say, here's my assignment, and the teacher and the student can comment on the code. It's actually pretty cool. And we're also doing a drink up tonight at, I think, 5:15 at the Ale House. So if you want to come by, drinks are on us. And, you know, if you have any other questions, just feel free to ask. Thanks. Woohoo!